Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world one book at a time.
And today we are undertaking a deep dive into one of the most chilling and I think most functional dystopias ever conceived.
Functional is the key word there.
Absolutely. We're talking about the architecture of control in Aldous Huxley's 1932 masterpiece, Brave New World. This book isn't about oppression through suffering.
Well,
It's about the terrifying efficacy of a social order built entirely on engineered pleasure, guaranteed comfort, and, above all, absolute stability.
okay, let's unpack this. The core question Huxley puts forward is, well, it's radical, and frankly, it's deeply uncomfortable for us today.
It is.
It's asking how much of our challenging, unpredictable freedom and how much of our demanding, often painful truth
Right.
are we willing to trade away for a guaranteed, engineered life of constant comfort and unshakable social stability?
Precisely. And this matters so profoundly now because, we are actively navigating an age of rapidly advancing biotechnology, pervasive mood regulation,
Oh, absolutely. Pharmaceuticals everywhere.
and algorithmic environments, social and digital, that are specifically designed to minimize friction.
And maximize agreeable sensation. We're kind of constantly choosing convenience over complexity.
We are. So our mission today is not to get into a partisan debate about any specific modern political system.
No, that's not what we do here.
Instead, we're performing a systems-level analysis. We are going to dissect the mechanics Huxley created, the institutions, the economic incentives, the psychological feedback loops that make up the world state.
We need to understand why this specific architecture produces these outcomes, like relentless engineered happiness and absolute manufactured consent. So
Yeah.
to begin understanding this perfectly functional, persistent dystopia, we really have to start with the context of the man who wrote it.
Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley. He was a prominent English writer, an intellectual, a philosopher, and I think this is really important. He came from a family of noted biologists.
Yes, T.H. Huxley.
Exactly. That scientific lineage gave him a really unique perspective on the emerging power of biological control. He wrote Brave New World in the early 20th century, and it was published in 1932.
And the world state itself uses the designation AF 632.
After Ford,
After Ford, positioning the age of mass production as the singular starting point of their new civilization.
the temporal context is everything.
Yeah.
The sources make it so clear that the world state sees its own existence as a calculated, rational choice.
One made after a period of unimaginable trauma. Huxley was writing in the shadow of the Great War, which in the book they call the 9 Years' War.
Right, and the global economic collapse that followed.
Exactly. The official history they teach the citizens states that civilization faced a really simple, stark choice: world control and destruction.
So the stability of the world state is framed as the lesser of two evils. It's a political necessity born out of total chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And what fuels that sense of total control? It was the rise of mass production, which Huxley satirizes by replacing God with
Our
our Ford. The assembly line is elevated to a foundational religious and social symbol. They don't just use the T model. They mark its introduction as like the 0 hour of the new era.
And that industrial context links directly to the scientific trends Huxley was observing. He was deeply aware of emerging concepts in science,
From genetics too.
from early genetics research to the foundational work of behavioral psychology, specifically, the work of Pavlov on conditioned reflexes.
Oh, yeah.
The world state's power rests on the systemic, comprehensive application of scientific management, not just to production lines, but to human beings themselves,
Controlling every single aspect of life.
from artificial conception to death.
Which brings us to the central thesis of Brave New World. And in plain language, it's this. The world state maintains its absolute unshakable stability and universal happiness by meticulously eliminating everything that defines difficult, emotional, and, existential human life.
Everything. Strong individual emotion, the profound instability of family bonds.
Which they consider smutty and obscene.
Completely. Deep introspection, complex high culture, and any form of suffering, sickness, or existential pain.
It's not a system of oppression through overt violence, which is what we see in so many other dystopias.
No, not at all. It's control achieved through relentless, engineered pleasure. The entire point of the system is that they condition people from the moment of conception to love their specific servitude.
Making the chains invisible.
Because they're comfortable.
Let's turn now to the true architecture of this society. And we have to start literally at the beginning. the industrialization of human reproduction.
Which is described in just horrifying detail by the DHC, the Director of Hatcheries and Conditioning, as he's proudly outlining the process for his young students.
In the fertilizing room.
Yeah, and what immediately jumps out to any modern reader is the world state's total rejection of natural, or as they call it, viviparous reproduction.
The very concepts of motherhood and fatherhood are not just outdated, they're considered unpleasant, smutty.
Disgusting historical artifacts. The DHC illustrates this revulsion by, he interrupts himself when he's describing the old ways.
He does.
He declares that the parents were the father and the mother, and even the sound of the words is considered obscene, like crash, crash.
Like something breaking or collapsing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that deep aversion is politically and psychologically necessary for the system's stability. The DHC emphasizes that natural reproduction inherently results in instability because children were brought up by their parents.
And not in state conditioning centers.
Exactly. The emotional intensity, the suffocating intimacies, the unpredictable jealousies, the dangerous loyalty of the family unit.
That's precisely what the world state needs to strip away. The system has to have total control over the development of its citizens.
And the technical mechanism that allows for this industrial-scale manufacturing of citizens is the Bokanovsky's process.
This is the key.
This is the key instrument of social stability, and it's exclusively applied to the lower castes, the gammas, deltas, and epsilons.
And we get this very clinical description of how it works. A normal egg gives you one embryo, one adult.
Right.
But a Bokanovskified egg is subjected to a whole series of shocks. They bring it out after only 36 hours and treat it with hard x-rays.
Then chilling, and then they dose it almost to death with alcohol.
It's this paradoxical treatment, right?
Yeah.
Checking the normal growth actually causes the egg to start to bud or clone itself.
And that budding is how the world state achieves mass production of specialized workers. From a single egg, they can produce anywhere from 8 to 96 identical individuals.
A score of them.
A score of them. The DHC calls it a prodigious improvement on nature.
And the purpose is so explicit. It's to create standard men and women in uniform batches.
Which allows an entire small factory or specialized task to be staffed by the products of a single Bokanovsky group.
This ensures they're completely replaceable, predictable, interchangeable. They are engineered to feel unity because they literally are identical.
That level of biological uniformity leads us right into our second core insight: the detailed biomechanical predestination and caste design.
The system doesn't just clone. It custom engineers the capacity and psychology of every single citizen, from alpha all the way down to epsilon semi-morons.
And that caste determination happens during the bottling room and the social predestination room. They track the bottle labels meticulously, heredity details, fertilization date, Bokanovsky group membership.
But the real genius of the system, if you can call it that, is that they ensure the environment matches the heredity.
And the techniques for controlling mental and physical outcome are so targeted and, frankly, brutally precise.
For the lower castes, the DHC explicitly explains the methods. He says, nothing like oxygen shortage for keeping an embryo below par.
They purposefully reduce the flow of the blood surrogate to the lung, giving a delta or epsilon embryo less oxygen, which just stunts their intellectual development.
They also use chemical intervention, alcohol for instance, to keep deltas and epsilons small and backward.
All to ensure they are perfectly suited for menial, repetitive tasks. The goal is to maximize functional output while minimizing cognitive ability. As Mr. Foster points out, in epsilons, we don't need human intelligence.
It's just horrifying. They're engineering for physical suitability and functional stupidity. They even experiment with accelerating physical development to match a cow's gestation period.
To avoid long years of superfluous and wasted immaturity, they just want the labor without the long, costly upbringing.
I find that particularly alarming. They aren't just selecting for traits. They're actively engineering defects and then ensuring the individual's conditioned to be perfectly happy with those limitations.
Yes.
That sounds like the ultimate definition of manufactured consent.
It is. And even for the higher castes, the conditioning is relentless, pre-preparing them for their specialized jobs. We hear that anecdote about the 250 embryonic rocket plane engineers on Rack 3.
Right. They're all alphas, but their specific containers are constantly being rotated.
And the purpose of that rotation is pure, perverse psychological linkage. The flow of blood surrogate is purposefully slowed when they're right side up, making them uncomfortable.
Half-starved.
But it's doubled when they're upside down. The result, they learn to associate topsy-turvydom with well-being.
In fact, They're only truly happy when they're standing on their heads.
It's incredible. It ensures that the discomfort and physical stress of flying rocket planes being upside down becomes inherently pleasurable to them.
It's predestination becoming pure physiological conditioning. The system ensures every individual, regardless of their caste, isn't just suited for their role, but actively finds their labor, even the discomfort in it, to be the highest form of satisfaction.
Our third core insight then moves from that biological engineering in the bottle to the psychological conditioning in the cradle.
Controlling the mind once the babies are decanted and taken to the infant nurseries. This is the neo-Pavlovian conditioning in action.
And this is one of the most chilling and memorable scenes in the entire book because it shows the systemic use of trauma.
The DHC personally leads the tour of the conditioning rooms. He tells the students to watch carefully as these 8-month-old Delta babies, all identical and dressed in khaki, are brought in.
They're crawling toward trays, holding beautiful, colorful roses and gaily colored books, things that are naturally appealing to infants.
And then comes the systematic trauma. Once the infants are happily touching the petals and crumbling the pages, the DHC gives the signal.
There's a violent explosion, a shrill siren, alarm bells.
And simultaneously, a mild but painful electric shock is administered through the floor. The children's bodies twitch and stiffen, and their curiosity immediately turns to a normal howl of ordinary terror.
The lesson is immediate, brutal, and designed to be permanent. When the nurses offer them the flowers and books again, the infants just shrink away in horror.
And the director triumphantly notes that books and loud noises, flowers, and electric shocks are now linked in the infant mind, and after 200 repetitions,
They'll be wedded indissolubly. They will have an instinctive hatred of books and botany for life.
I have to stop you there. We are talking about deliberately traumatizing infants with violent explosions and electric shocks just to make them hate nature and literature.
Yeah.
It's so chilling.
It is.
How did the students in the book even react to that?
You reacted with polite interest. They saw it purely as a high-efficiency engineering problem being solved, and the rationale is purely economic, which the DHC explains as high economic policy.
Okay.
Previously, lower castes liked nature, which made them want to go into the country to enjoy gratuitous things like primroses and landscapes.
Gratuitous is the key word, isn't it? A love of nature is economically damaging because it keeps no factories busy.
It requires no consumption of manufactured goods.
Right?
Exactly. So the system abolishes the love of nature among the lower classes. But they can't simply abolish the desire to leave the city because the system relies on transport consumption.
And solution is ingenious.
It is. They condition the masses to hate the country, but simultaneously condition them to love country sports, which necessitate elaborate apparatus.
So they consume manufactured articles, specialized gear, transport, every single weekend. The electric shocks ensure mandatory consumerism.
That systematic aversion sets the stage for the second critical psychological tool, hypnopedia or sleep teaching.
This is used to install the complex verbal rules and moral frameworks that you can't just administer through shock therapy.
Hypnopedia was accidentally discovered, right? Through the historical example of little Reuben Rabinovich, a child who, while asleep, absorbed and woke up repeating a long, incomprehensible lecture by George Bernard Shaw.
That's right. And the initial discovery was that sleep teaching had no effect on the intellect. It couldn't teach chemistry or history.
But the DHC realized its profound value for moral indoctrination. He emphasizes that wordless conditioning is crude. It can't bring home the finer distinctions. For that, you need words.
But they have to be words without reason.
Exactly. And hypnopedia is the perfect tool for this, described as the greatest moralizing and socializing force of all time.
The hypnopedia rooms are described with 80 cots, each with a small speaker beneath the pillow, emitting this continuous murmur of faint voices.
And this is where the core societal values and prejudices are implanted. We listen in as the elementary class consciousness lesson is playing. Alpha children wear gray. I'm really awfully glad I'm a beta because I don't work so hard. And then we are much better than the gammas and deltas.
This is the creation of identity, contentment, and class prejudice, all entirely manufactured in the subconscious.
The words are repeated 40 or 50 times before the children wake up, 120 times, 3 times a week, over 30 months. The sheer volume is staggering.
Bernard Marx, who's a specialist in this, he calculates the total. 62,400 repetitions make one non-negotiable truth.
And the psychological impact isn't like water wearing holes in granite. It's described like drops of liquid sealing wax.
They encrust and incorporate themselves until the mind is just completely saturated and fixed with this societal dogma.
The person believes they chose their identity, but it was just implanted through mechanical, tireless repetition during sleep.
This systematic programming leads us straight to our fourth core idea: the absolute cult of consumption and the mandate against any form of introspection or self-denial.
The economic incentive becomes a moral law, universally accepted.
The hypnotic proverbs that govern behavior are the basis of their whole economy. Ending is better than mending. The more stitches, the less riches.
Mending is defined as an antisocial crime against society because manufactured obsolescence and constant consumption have to be compulsory in the interests of industry.
This is in direct opposition to all traditional pre-Fordian ethics, which valued thrift, self-denial, delayed gratification.
Right. Mustafa Mann points out that industrial civilization is only possible when there is no self-denial, only self-indulgence up to the very limits imposed by hygiene and economics.
And the state achieves perfect stability by ensuring citizens have no time, no leisure from pleasure, not a moment to sit down and think.
In the bad old days, old men used to renounce, retire, spend their time reading and thinking, which often led to instability or philosophical questioning.
But now, in the name of progress, the old men work, the old men copulate, the old men have no time.
The system just floods life with total agreeable distraction, and if a crevice of time should yawn in the solid substance of their distractions,
The citizen has an automatic prescribed response.
there is always soma, delicious soma. This engineered lack of solitude ensures the elimination of critical thought.
So now we can move into mapping how these core ideas translate into a persistent, functioning political and social structure.
The true mechanics of the world state's governance.
And the primary overriding objective is explicitly stated by Mustafa Mond: absolute, unwavering stability.
Mond explains that stability is the supreme value, and to maintain it, truth, challenging art, high culture, even pure science must be sacrificed.
He doesn't just offer this as a theory either. He cites this classic empirical proof that underlies the entire caste system, the Cyprus experiment.
Right. This experiment, conducted in AF 473, involved clearing the island of Cyprus and resettling it with 22,000 specially prepared alphas.
The most intellectually gifted caste. They were given all the necessary equipment left to manage their own affairs. It was basically a society of intellectual equals.
And the result was total collapse in less than 6 years. It fulfilled all the theoretical predictions. There were strikes in all the factories because alphas resisted low-grade work.
Fierce internal conflicts, civil war.
The lesson learned was undeniable. A society composed entirely of alphas is inherently unstable and miserable. Mond concludes that you cannot pour upper caste champagne surrogate into lower caste bottles. Each caste has to be perfectly conditioned for its designated sacrifice.
That's fascinating. So the failures of the world state, the necessity of the lower castes, it isn't just about labor.
Yeah.
It's a political safety measure.
Yeah.
The system actively engineers inequality to ensure structural stability.
Absolutely. And stability even supersedes economic efficiency. The world state actively suppresses technological advances and labor-saving inventions because excessive leisure is destabilizing, especially for the lower castes who are conditioned for relentless consumption and activity, not thought.
They cite that disastrous 4-hour day experiment in Ireland from a century and a half ago.
Right. Technically, they could have reduced all lower caste working hours to 3 or 4 a day, which would have dramatically increased efficiency.
But the result was unrest and a large increase in the consumption of soma.
That sudden influx of unplanned leisure was so destabilizing that people felt compelled to take a chemical holiday from reality just to cope with the silence.
Every single change is viewed through the lens of being a menace to stability.
This is such a crucial systems insight for us. The world state is willing to sacrifice potential GDP and technological progress to prevent the rise of independent thought.
Which they know is inherently subversive.
Exactly.
Okay, next, let's map the ultimate system stabilizer: pharmaceutical control through soma.
It's omnipresent, perfect, and politically essential. It's the panacea for all emotional inconvenience.
The mantra is, 1 cubic centimeter cures 10 gloomy sentiments.
Henry Foster insists to Bernard, who refuses to take it, take a holiday from reality whenever you like and come back without so much as a headache or a mythology.
The world state claims to have conquered old age and assured stability. Soma just completes the package by conquering the human spirit.
And what's most illuminating is Mustafa Mond's explicit definition of Soma as Christianity without tears.
That's such a powerful phrase.
It is. He notes that in the past, achieving qualities like patience, emotional stability, reconciliation, anger management, it all required moral effort.
Self-denial, years of difficult spiritual training.
Now, you simply swallow 2 or 3 half-gram tablets, and you are instantly, effortlessly virtuous and content.
You can carry at least half your mortality about in a bottle. The system just eliminates the need for courage, for endurance, for any form of inner strength.
We see the ultimate manifestation of this system when Linda, the savage's mother, returns to civilization.
Right. She's old and sick, representing the failure of the system's longevity promises. But for her, the solution is purely the return to Soma.
She is described as lying in bed, taking holiday after holiday continuously, taking up to 20 grams a day, remaining in a perpetual state of ecstatic absence.
She's described as floating in some other world where radio music is a labyrinth of sonorous colors, television images are an indescribably delicious, all-singing feelie.
And the patchouli scent is more than scent. It's Popeye making love. Only much more so, and without end. Soma eliminates reality, pain, and crucially, the need for self-reflection about her past choices.
Moving from pharmacological to social control, the management of leisure, consumption, and distraction is equally essential.
The state mandates recreational promiscuity under the slogan, "Everyone belongs to everyone else, after all."
Contraception is automatic, facilitated by the Malthusian belt, ensuring no unspeakable, agonizing pleasure of motherhood occurs.
Thereby eliminating the single most destabilizing emotional bond, the family.
The communal and religious functions are synthesized into these rituals, like the Solidarity Service.
Bernard Marx's uncomfortable attendance details the full sensory experience. 12 members, man, woman, man, in a ring, ready to lose their 12 separate identities in a larger being.
This is a highly synthetic, state-controlled religious experience designed to channel the human need for transcendence into conformity.
They drink a loving cup of Soma-laced strawberry ice cream, chant hymns like, "Ford, we are 12, oh, make us one," like drops within the social river.
And the music, the drums and harmonies, it's specifically composed to haunt the yearning bowels of compassion.
The ritual culminates in the orgy porgy, a controlled communal consummation where they lose themselves completely in mass emotion, reinforcing the idea that private spiritual experience is unnecessary and dangerous.
Beyond rituals, distraction is provided by high-sensation cinema, the feelies.
Lenina and the Savage attend 3 weeks in a helicopter, and this is described as a super singing, synthetic talking, colored, stereoscopic feelie.
Complete with synchronized scent organ accompaniment and, crucially, tactile feedback via metal knobs on the armrests,
allowing the audience to feel the protagonist's emotional and physical experience.
The sensory experience is overwhelming, described as dazzling and incomparably more solid-looking than they would have seen in actual flesh and blood, far more real than reality.
And even though the plots are described as idiotic and simplistic, a gigantic Negro and a golden-haired beta-plus female locked in a titillating embrace, the emotional engineers require enormous ingenuity
to create works of art out of practically nothing but pure sensation.
That raises a really important question. If the content is so simplistic, why does the state invest enormous ingenuity in the production?
Because the system must ensure that the distraction is so completely engrossing and so perfectly sensational that the citizens have no mental capacity left over for reflection or critical evaluation.
They're literally overwhelmed by agreeable sensation. The feelies manage leisure by making reality seem dull by comparison.
Finally, the system maps out the active suppression of genuine individuality and truth, which are just antithetical to stability.
And Mustafa Mond, the world controller for Western Europe, is the walking embodiment of this calculated sacrifice.
Mond admits that pure science, the pursuit of truth for its own sake, is a potential menace. He keeps it carefully chained and muzzled,
reducing scientific endeavor to a mere cookery book with an orthodox, unchallenged theory. He explains that he himself was once a talented physicist and was nearly sent to an island for practicing a bit of real science.
Because new scientific discovery is potentially subversive.
So he chose instead to serve as a controller, sacrificing truth to happiness and stability.
His experience taught him that truth is a menace and science is a public danger because it can undo its own good work by challenging the established equilibrium.
Which is why all other inquiries are most sedulously discouraged, unless they contribute directly to consumption or stability.
And beyond that, the entire social architecture is actively designed to cultivate a hatred of solitude.
People never are alone now. And if they are, they're conditioned to feel intensely uncomfortable, almost ill.
Being alone is dangerous because it leads to religious sentiment, philosophical questions, critical thinking.
Which is demonstrated by the emotional isolation experienced by both Bernard Marx and Helmholtz Watson, who become dissidents simply by desiring solitude.
So when we look at the world state's sophisticated mechanisms, the goal for us is not to treat this as some predictive roadmap of the future.
No, it's about identifying patterns.
Exactly. Identifying patterns that mirror the systemic controls Huxley detailed 90 years ago. We're looking for the modern versions of those mechanisms.
And one of the most immediate connections is the rise of modern biotechnology and the possibility of engineered outcomes.
Huxley's Bokanovsky's process and the precise cast design where they use oxygen and alcohol shortages to create these perfectly functional, non-ambitious epsilons.
It reflects the ethical implications of future human editing, specifically when that editing is tied to societal utility.
Exactly. As technology allows us to edit the human germline, you have to wonder if society might start to demand or engineer specific psychological or physical traits solely for economic or social utility.
The world state achieves stability by ensuring the vast majority of its population could not aspire to anything higher than their predetermined, industrially necessary role.
We have to consider where a focus on maximizing utility might lead, particularly if state or corporate interests are the ones defining that utility.
Then there is the pervasive pharmaceutical culture and mood regulation, which perfectly mirrors the role of soma.
We live in a society that increasingly expects emotional pain, sadness, or existential angst to be treated as a medical inconvenience that must be abolished instantly.
The imperative is to immediately neutralize gloomy sentiments, rather than encourage personal resilience or confront the sociological sources of distress.
The expectation is that we should always be jolly and productive. When Bernard Marx is miserable, London's immediate, almost reflexive response is to offer him a gram of soma.
Citing the hypnopedic wisdom, 1 cubic centimeter cures 10 gloomy sentiments.
We are increasingly driven by the expectation that any state of unhappiness is merely a chemical imbalance requiring immediate correction.
A perfect reflection of Mann's Christianity without tears. This impulse aligns precisely with Huxley's system, which substitutes psychological resilience for pharmacological management.
Why endure the hard work of coping with grief, fear, or anxiety when a tiny pill can deliver all the benefits of morality and religion without any of the drawbacks?
Exactly. And finally, let's look at the cult of consumerism and algorithmic entertainment.
Huxley mandated consumption. Ending is better than mending, and designed these elaborate, high-sensation leisure activities like electromagnetic golf and the feelies to keep people perpetually distracted.
And consuming.
Right.
This is so directly analogous to our modern algorithmic feeds, streaming services, video games.
All engineered for maximum agreeable sensation and distraction.
They're hyper-personalized, and they aim to provide minimum intellectual friction, preventing that crevice of time that might lead to independent or critical thought.
The high-sensation, low-meaning feelies are the precise template for content designed to maximize engagement metrics rather than provoke reflection.
And it all comes down to the trade-offs between comfort, freedom, and truth. Mustafa Mond argued that high art, truth, genuine emotion are incompatible with universal happiness and stability.
We see this negotiation constantly. Convenience, seamless experience, instant gratification, often winning out over challenging, demanding, or unpleasant reality.
Mond's argument that Shakespeare's Othello couldn't possibly exist in a stable world because conflict and tragedy are eliminated is a profound commentary on the cost of engineered happiness.
If a society eliminates suffering, it also eliminates the capacity for tragedy.
And therefore the capacity for art that truly grapples with deep human conflict. The feelies, like modern clickbait, promise intense sensation but deliver zero lasting meaning.
This deep dive gives us such a critical lens to situate the book within broader societal themes.
Particularly the dynamic and often brutal tension between powerful systems designed for conformity and the desperate struggles of individual human beings yearning for something more.
We see that struggle most clearly in the characters who, for whatever reason, stand outside the conformity. Bernard Marx is physically atypical small, a gamma-minus physique.
Possibly due to an alcohol mistake in the bottle. And this physical defect generates a mental excess, forcing him into self-conscious separation and solitude.
His isolation, which was unintended by the system, gives him a dangerous capacity for thought.
Then you have Helmholtz Watson, who is genetically and physically perfect, an alpha plus, indefatigable lover, best mixer.
But he suffers from mental excess. He's too able.
He feels he has something important, some true poetry to express, but there is literally nothing to write about in this perfectly stable world.
He realizes he can't make words piercing when he's writing about a community sing or the latest scent organs.
Yep.
His tragedy is the absence of important conflict.
Both men realize they are individuals, and they feel this profound loneliness in their difference.
And then there is John the Savage, who grew up entirely outside the system, in the reservation.
Exposed to genuine human tragedy, viviparous birth, disease, religion, and the soul-stirring poetry of Shakespeare.
He represents the starkest contrast to the world state's manufactured infantile existence. His arrival forces the system to confront its own compromises.
And the world state provides a perfect case study of pleasure as a tool of control. The citizens are not oppressed, they are conditioned to love their fate.
We see the horrifying efficacy of this control when John attempts to free the Deltas after his mother, Linda, dies from an overdose of soma.
He runs to the soma distribution area in the hospital crying, "Don't take that horrible stuff, it's poison, it's poison." And he begins throwing the pill boxes out the window.
Trying to destroy their source of comfort, he believes he is liberating them.
Trying to make you be free whether you want to or not, he's desperately asking them, "Don't you want to be free?" And men?
But the khaki mob of Deltas charges him with absolute fury and violence. They howl with sacrilege and rage because he is depriving them of their scheduled comfort, their happiness.
They genuinely prefer being babies.
This failure of rebellion highlights the central, calculated decision of Mustafa Mond. Stability must come first.
Even if it requires suppressing the noblest aspects of the human spirit. The failure of the Cyprus experiment and the unrest after the 4-hour day proved to him that truth, beauty, and freedom are fundamentally disruptive.
And therefore must be sacrificed for the greater good of peace and prosperity.
This system provides guaranteed material security, guaranteed health, and engineered pleasure youth almost unimpaired until 60 to prevent the need for God, courage, heroism, or nobility.
Mond explicitly calls these qualities symptoms of political inefficiency. They are unnecessary in a world that has abolished struggle.
The world state doesn't demand its citizens learn to bear life's inevitable slings and arrows. It simply abolishes the slings and arrows entirely.
As the Savage puts it, in the world state, they don't suffer, they don't oppose fate, they just abolish the problems.
It's too easy. They have eliminated the moral necessity of overcoming difficulty.
The result is a system where consent is manufactured entirely through effortless comfort, guaranteed distraction, and the eradication of any challenging reality. To conclude our analysis, we really have to revisit Huxley's definition of happiness and the profound cost of achieving it universally.
The world state achieved universal happiness, yes, but only by abolishing the capacity for tragedy, moral depth, and genuine earned joy that comes from overcoming struggle.
In the world state, suffering is treated as the ultimate political and physiological threat to stability. Every pain, every inconvenience, every philosophical difficulty is either chemically erased or socially engineered out of existence.
But the Savage argues that tears and discomfort are necessary, that noble acts and true poetry come from exposing what is mortal and unsure to all that fortune, death, and danger dare.
The system has a brilliant synthetic solution for the human desire for intensity and struggle.
The violent passion surrogate, administered regularly once a month. This floods the system with adrenaline, providing the complete physiological equivalent of fear and rage.
All the tonic, exhilarating effects of murdering Desdemona and being murdered by Othello.
But without any of the inconveniences of messy reality or criminal prosecution?
But John the Savage rejects this comfortable synthetic solution. He says so pointedly, "I like the inconveniences."
And in his final defiant confrontation with Mustafa Mond, he lists everything the system has eliminated that he truly wants. I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin.
Mond's final word on the matter summarizes the entire philosophical trade-off perfectly. In fact, you're claiming the right to be unhappy.
And the Savage claims them all. The right to grow old and ugly, the right to have cancer, the right to have too little to eat, and the right to be tortured by unspeakable pains of every kind.
He recognizes that without the capacity for these extremes, life is inherently trivial.
But even the Savage's suffering is ultimately absorbed and co-opted by the system. He retreats to an abandoned lighthouse, seeking isolation and spiritual purification through self-flagellation.
A primal, intense emotional act meant to redeem his grief and guilt. But Darwin Bonaparte, the Feely Corporation's photographer, captures the entire agonizing process from a helicopter.
And the ultimate fate of this pain is perhaps the most devastating indictment of the world state. It's immediately co-opted, monetized, and turned into a wildly popular Feely, the Savage of Surrey.
The sensation is amplified with soundtrack recordings, close-ups of his distorted face, and slow motion for a comically exquisite effect.
Even dissent and profound suffering become just another form of agreeable, monetized sensation for the masses, culminating in a collective orgy-porgy around him.
The system is so effective that it can absorb and dissolve any form of deviance or tragedy back into mass distraction and sensational entertainment.
We are left with the chilling choice Huxley lays out. Do we choose the easy, comfortable, medicated path of guaranteed stability? Or do we risk the profound isolation, the pain, and the difficult, uncertain search for meaning that defines genuine humanity?
We are left to ponder what capacity for deep life we surrender when we choose the path of least resistance and absolute, effortless comfort.
This deep dive was only possible thanks to the profound insights of Aldous Huxley in Brave New World.
We strongly encourage you to read the book yourselves. Support the author if you found these ideas valuable, or check your local library for free access.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.